Oh,
Good
hello.
morning.
Good morning. Morning, morning, morning. You were hiding behind my web browser window.
I hide. Gotta watch out for me.
Yes.
I'm a hider.
How are you today?
I'm good. Good morning, Andrew.
Morning. This
Good
time
morning.
you could not sneak up on me, Andrew. Deanie did, but you
Haha,
didn't. Not today.
I like sneaking up
you
on
were ready.
people's. Okay.
So, Andrew, first of all, now that we're in this phase of the project, I expect you will not as often have new coding stuff to show, right?
That would be my expectation. I don't have one this week. I still plan on showing off demos as soon as things are workable. But because I have such a big chunk to just kind of do, it'll be a little bit before that's ready.
Yeah,
But I assume once I have it like sort of spawning the elements, we can test that out. We can kind of go stage by stage.
yeah, no, that's
I
great.
still have,
Great.
I know last week we never went through the demo, so there still might be some stuff. Um, but it's kind of a small one last week.
Okay.
So I don't know. There's no need for me to go through anything today.
Yeah, that's entirely up to you. I don't have expectations of other than when you're ready for polishing to do that. There is one thing that happened to me last night that I want to talk to you guys about particularly. But before that, the letter that I wrote to the ACM, and I'm just waiting for Vint because he had a few suggestions. I haven't sent it yet. In that letter, I say let's try to find a new term instead of metadata. Because what I'm really referring to is the stuff behind what's shown on the screen. So, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, the font and the font weight is part of the stuff that we care about. So I noticed Mark posted in Slack, and this is something we're going to have to talk about in person. I think I'm not saying anybody here is right or wrong, but I think the language most definitely is lacking. So, okay, so I'll just tell you what happened to me last night. It's the weirdest thing. I put in the Vision, I haven't used it for about a week because there isn't that much to do in it. And then I went to the Polycam app. You know, Polycam is also on the mobile phone. You can do a scan of a scene, 3D, all of that stuff. And that was nice enough. And then when I opened a scan of, oh, Leon, good. Don't worry, I won't repeat a lot. Hello, Leon.
Hello.
So I was just beginning, just two brief things. One, some of the language we have to be careful with. We've been talking about metadata when maybe that isn't what we mean. What I mean when I'm talking about it is everything behind what is shown on the screen. It could be the font. So it isn't about descriptive and administrative only. It isn't about headings only. And this is why I love the term electronic literature, because once that is described as born digital, it becomes something else. I'm not saying it describes the whole package, but I mean, Dini, when you reminded me of that, I kind of obviously I knew about it, but it hadn't made an impact. But when you reminded me, it actually helped me wrap my thesis together for my PhD. So to me, it's a big deal. So I just wanted to say that because the post that Mark commented on my thing in Slack, it seems we have quite a different idea of what it is, and that's totally fine. I look forward to us all getting together and finding out what is this text on screen. That's all. But now here's the big thing. I had an almost religious experience yesterday that I'm so excited to share with you guys, okay? I put on the Vision Pro headset, opened the Polycam app. That's the app where you can scan scenes. It's also for the Vision because it obviously can scan. And I opened a scene of New York City, and two things happened. First of all, when it opened, it looked like an insanely high detailed hand painted model. It's a LiDAR scan, so the buildings are sometimes wonky, but the detailing was superb. It was higher than my visual acuity. It was absolutely, something happened in the brain that if I look at something in reality, it almost wasn't as much. But the really amazing thing was while it was loading, I had this sphere of dots, like a point cloud. That point cloud was so sharp and it was so dimensional, I could instantly feel the structure of it. Obviously completely different from just seeing it on a screen. So what we are doing now in step one with Sloan, which, Andrew, calm down, it's not going to change, is such a useful step into this, because at this point, in the right forum, I think we need to start dreaming about what happens if you can have 1 billion points of light. Each one of them is a document, and you can choose to have them shaped over there, and room scale. Now I'm talking physical room, Deanie, rather than gray. Okay, I'll do half of it for Rob. I won't bore you by repeating that. Hi, Rob. Just going through a little thing that I experienced in the Vision Pro yesterday. I opened up the Polycam app, and as I was opening a model in there, it was so clear, but the loading animation was just this sphere of lots of little dots. Of course, we've all seen something like that in sci-fi movies, but to see it at this quality in the headset, it was almost a religious experience for me, or mystical, or whatever you want to call it, because I felt that I could feel the future of our type of information. It was really deep and moving. So what I was just finishing here with the rest of the guys is what we're doing with Sloan right now is important, and we have to finish it for what it is, because these are real things. But in a forum related to this, we should probably also look at what such a world where every piece of information we have can be reduced to a point. And it's room scale, so physical room scale. So you can put, memory palace, this there and that there. And then the final thing to tell you guys, because all of this is kind of obvious, is that when we start doing this, we have to start looking at composability. And this is a really important thing, Deanie. We have links. They are obvious connections, right? But from one paragraph to the next, or one section, maybe, I'm not sure Baudrillard would agree, but okay. I like where you're going, Deanie. But so here's my final thing from my side. I still think that when you're really reading, you're going to need some kind of a floating card with text. That's my personal feeling at the moment. But it still needs to be an environment that is super, super rich, where you can expand and collapse things. But what does that mean? It probably means that the two most important things we discussed, addressability, where things are, and connection, how to put them together, becomes paramount. Because that means what connects paragraph 1 to paragraph 2 should almost have equal weight as what connects a citation to source, or a name to metadata, for instance, in the traditional sense. So how we compose these things suddenly becomes exciting. But anyway, goodness gracious, this thing looked amazing. Thank you for that long intro. Finally, I can breathe. I've been thinking about telling you guys for a long time.
Can you say what it is that you were looking at?
Yes, I'll show you the iPhone version, because then you can see the icon as well. It's called Polycam.
Polycam. Okay.
Polycam. Deanie, there are other views beyond B. What do you mean?
The notion of hyperreal has been around for quite a while. I'm looking at Cyber Reader by Victor Vitanza. Also, the book that you guys recommended a long time ago that I've read and I'm using in my class, Hyperreality, which borrows from beyond Baudrillard. Baudrillard's not the only one who thought of that idea.
I was just trying to impress you the fact that I knew his name.
Who?
I was just trying to impress you that I knew Baudrillard's name. I took a class on him in university, and I hated it so much. And the paper was so overdue.
Well,
finally, I printed out a huge poster, one single sheet, and handed it in late. And just told the teacher, this is ridiculous. And he said, yeah, I know. That's why I wanted you to write about it. That was fun. Anyway, yes, hyperreal. Absolutely agree with you, Deanie, in that sense. Thank you. Leon.
Yes, I have a question. Is there an agenda for today?
Yes.
Can you post it in the chat before I hijack any topics or scheduled topics?
Yeah, absolutely. It isn't much though, because hang on, because Andrew.
Hey, can I interrupt just for a second? Because I do have the reference to hyperreality from Vitanza. And I think it plays on what you're talking about. And this is what I'm teaching in the class next semester. So from cyberspace to VR, let's turn now to hyperreality. And this book came out in 1996, right? Which is often used to mean virtual reality. Initially, however, would venture this distinction. Virtual reality is brought about immediately by mechanistic environments, helmets, gloves, video games. Hyperreality consists of the long-term consequences of these trips into virtuality. There's a residual effect when we move from reality to VR and back again, namely the reality effect, with so-called real reality or the actual becoming merely one among countless virtual realities. According to Baudrillard, reality is extended realities, and most devastatingly, hyperreality is more real than reality, and for many of us, more attractive. This is what he says back in 1996, and Victor's a good friend of mine. He just retired from years of teaching. He's considered one of the top theorists of digital writing in the 90s and 2000s. Terrific guy.
Can you put the name in the chat, please? I don't have that particular one. Thank you. Peter, yeah, Leon, our agenda today, there isn't much. So after this chat, we definitely need to look at what you posted on Twitter. We have plenty of time for that today. It's a perfect day for it. Peter, we're just talking about a few things. And the last thing was in the Vision Pro, there's an app called Polycam, which yesterday, when I opened a model, it had a spherical loading thing, and the dots were just made of dots, and they were so crystal clear and beautifully rendered. And Dini is saying that qualifies as hyperreality, and I completely agree with her. And we're just trying to see how that fits in with a lot of things, including things like memory balances.
Well, I think Hickman's definition of hyperreality would be a virtual reality or mixed reality experience that includes other senses beyond vision. So you have to have actual touch, and that could consist of somebody running up and handing a book to you in the outer reality, while in the inner reality, you see the book floating off of the shelf to your hand when you hold your hand up like you're reaching for the book. And you'd have the virtual world representation of the book floating off of the shelf into your hand, when in the outer reality, an assistant on stage at the hyperreality establishment would run up and hand the book to you, so that you'd feel the physical book go into your hand at the moment that the image of the book entered your hand. Hyperreality would also include leveraging sound, scent, little fans to blow air at you if you're moving around, so that you feel like you're moving in the space when you really aren't moving. So I think that's really a good definition for us to work with.
Yeah, okay. I mean, Dini was doing a very interesting exposition as well. And personally, I'm not so sure if it has to be multimedia wise. I think definitely hyperreality can be visual, but of course, there's nothing wrong with it also having other things. Now, one thing that I think is very important to just, okay, so the stuff of this billion points of light, the data, the thing, right? As I pointed in Slack, I just want to hear one perspective on that. And that is the difference. To me, there seems to be a huge difference between topic and keyword. What I mean by that is a keyword is something that is explicitly in the text taken out, like a name. A topic is a basic analysis of the paper to characterize it as a kind of a thing. Do you guys agree with that distinction?
I have a question.
Can you repeat that? I was going to say, can you repeat that?
Yeah, I can repeat that. So I've been banging my head off this, what to show in the space, because Andrew, don't worry, we're not going to do it now, but at some point our space will be filled with elements, right? And Mark has disagreed with me on most things because he knows what he's talking about. And it's been frustrating and useful. So yesterday, I think what I realized is that there is a difference between a keyword and topic. And to explain what that means from this point of view, you can have, whether it's ML or regex or human, I don't care, but you have a thing going through a paper and it picks up, for instance, names, Dini Grigar, Macintosh. These are keywords since they are words in the text and they are key to the user. Separately, we run a thing and that thing says, this paper is a humanities paper with technology. It does an analysis to, in 1 or 2 words, describe the paper. The reason I think this is very, very different, not only because we are making a judgment, the AI, ML, or human making a judgment, it is because of the visualizations they serve were markedly different. I can imagine having a sculpture, a virtual point sculpture in the room, which is humanities papers. Another one that is about XR. And of course, many papers will move from one place to the other. However, if there is a paper with the name Dini Grigar, that is a point. It doesn't really move in the same sense unless I want it to. Like, who is she? What categories does she fit? So, keywords extracted, topic analyzed. Leon.
Yeah. I ran into similar problems myself trying to explain XR fragments, that it's, when it's doing things which is not specifically mentioned as in the explicit metadata of a document, I started to basically call that implicit metadata. Isn't that much easier to describe what you're trying to describe? It's metadata which is not specified explicitly in the paper or in the document or in the metadata, but it's basically, it can be sort of inferred as implicit metadata. Because if you call it topic, then it's already pretty specific again, even though it's not mentioned explicitly as metadata, but there might be a lot more implicit metadata there, which is not a topic.
Dini, over to you. I really want to, yeah, Peter, please go ahead. But Dini, just because you have such a strong academic perspective, I just want to hear what you think about that language.
Well, of course, you're correct.
No, but would that fit in? I mean, like Doug Engelbart had explicit links. We call that a hyperlink. Implicit link is like a word's entry in its dictionary. So he used implicit and explicit in a very specific way. This seems to me to be very useful, but is it something we would want the user to kind of see? I mean, does that language fit in your world, Dini, or not?
Well, it already exists. I mean, this is how we're already talking about it. So I think when I was reading or saw your video, I watched your video. When I watched the video, I thought the point of what you're saying wasn't the revelation that these things are different, but that you're going to pull them out in different ways using AI. That was what I saw as interesting. And so know that there's a Modern Language Association conference coming up in New Orleans in January, and I'm on a panel for that. And my discussion is our project, right? I'm talking about our project, but I'm focusing on AI and how we're using AI for it. And what I've been waiting to see is like, what are we doing besides just using Claude to take notes? What other cool things are we going to do with AI? And that would be an important one, right? So we're using AI to extract 3 different things in 2 different categories, like the categories, keywords differently, right? And we're having to do different operations and methods for each different one, right? So we're not just saying, Claude, pull out information. We're saying, Claude or whoever, Jane, pull out the keywords for us. Category, what are the categories? And there's going to be a different way of handling both of those. And so the next step is, what is that? And that's not going to fall on Andrew necessarily. That's you thinking through how you want this to happen. So I didn't think what you were saying was like, oh my God, I never thought of that before. Right? That's always been. But what I think the cool part of what you were talking about is that we should be doing this with AI and that it's something that would be pertinent to our project. Does that make sense?
It makes 100% sense, and I have a feeling that, well, to me, it was a bit new because I had got muddled. And you know how it is, you combine things and you realize, no, they're actually separate. Shut up, watch the movie, right? That
Well,
kind of
I just came out of 4 days of electronic literature conference, and the whole damn thing was on AI, 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 AI. I mean, people are doing this all over the world, and they're making art with it, doing scholarly writing with it. I mean, you should have been there. I mean, you would have been like, oh yeah.
yeah.
So
No,
know that I just came out of 4 days and totally entrenched in how people are using AI in Africa, for example. It's interesting.
it is. And just, Peter, 10 seconds. I have one more question to Dini. In terms of the language, explicit, implicit, I like Leon's way of looking at it, but it seems that category is a good term for implicit because it refers to the act of categorization. Categorization has to be done by somebody or something, but keyword is a keyword. But anyway, we don't have to settle on language now, but I'm very grateful for this discussion. It's very important. Thank you for your patience, Peter.
Okay, I think we might want something a little bit more nuanced than simply having a topic keyword distinction. Keywords themselves can have broader terms that subsume them, and topics suggest a context beyond a keyword. For instance, a keyword might be core, Congress of Racial Equality, and the context could be protests of the World's Fair in New York City. So the topic could be protest groups, the keyword would be core, and there's sort of two things there in the context. First of all, you have your hierarchy of broader and narrower terms, and then topic-wise, you have how they're related, and a topic might relate more than one referent. So maybe you should have the notion of a referent and the notion of basically forming a sentence that relates one referent to another referent or to a concept, and that would constitute a topic.
So one thing, sorry, let me say the positive first. I wrote a note where I agreed with you, Peter, in the comments, but I do not want to get into taxonomies and all of that stuff because that's a little something else. Now, context is something that we have looked at, some of us, in terms of a binding. Let's say the conference proceedings thing that isn't the paper is the context, because that's the one that says this is a long paper, this is a short paper. But to include context explicitly here, I think is very, very useful. I've been running these, not Claude, because Claude is a bit too fancy. I've been running basic GPT on our papers for these things, and I would be very happy to add context. But the thing is, while I experiment on this, as we all could and should, it would be really useful if you guys told me what you want these prompts to be. Yeah, you know what I mean? For one paper, for instance, the one I'm submitting to the human thing, it doesn't actually say in the paper, this is for a workshop. So I agree with you very much, Peter. To add context to category and keywords is useful. Dini, how does that fit with your world?
Can I go back to, I mean, we've kind of jumped all over the place. I'm going to go back. Let's take this methodically, right? You brought up, the first thing you talked about was, can we call it something other than metadata? Is what we're doing different than that? I think that's the first pertinent thing you said. Then you moved into the way we're going to extract information, the kind of categories of our extraction. And we need to talk about methodology for that. And then the next step is, what do we call the actual operations we're doing? So I want to, before we go too deep into the woods, I want to step back with the notion of metadata. And so metadata has always been data about data. Right? It's information about information. That's the point of it. The word meta means going across. in Greek, as Rob knows. And so it's data about data. And so what is that? And then I mentioned Kate Helles's print is flat, code is deep. And her argument, which was accepted by the community, the electronic literature community and DH community, is that the difference between paper and a website is that the website has all this code working behind it. And there's 6 levels of code going for everything from like machine language, binary to assembly to, software coding, programming. There's 6 levels of code between me, the user, and the information I'm getting off the computer. Print, she argues, is flat. What you see is what you get. It's a WYSIWYG, And so that's the difference. And the argument she was making was pertinent in 2002 because people didn't understand what a website could do and how it changed art, right? And how missing one tag could totally glitch your work. Whereas if I didn't put a period at the end of a sentence on a piece of paper, it wouldn't screw up my argument. And that's essentially the difference, right? And so today, now we've moved forward 20 years, 22 years. Now we're starting to say, you know what, print's not really flat. We're working with PDFs and we print them out and they look flat, but really behind all of that information is a lot of gobbledygook, right, as we call it. And many times the paper glitches itself. And so what does that mean? It means that there's always information behind information. There's always something driving the writing process. Yeah, it's more brittle than unrestricted text. Absolutely, Peter. And yes, Ted Nelson doesn't like the term metadata. He didn't like anything he didn't make up. Let's just be honest here. If he didn't make it up, it ain't going to work for him. That's just Ted. But yeah, so just from that perspective, what do we call what we're doing? Is it metadata? Yeah, I mean, it is metadata. Is it the best term we can use? I don't know. I mean, it's been called metadata for a long time. Are we going to be the ones to change that?
I think this is a very important discussion because we're looking at different things. And I think Ted does have a point. All data refers to all the data. That was his argument when I interviewed him on this particular topic. And what Leon is talking about, inherent and explicit and implicit data. The information behind a word on a PDF, the font, the placement, all that stuff, I would say is inherent and explicit metadata because it's there. And so this other thing that we are now talking about taking out of this and using it for viewing, essentially, it may very well be metadata. Annotations should come under this, of course. But the thing is, with loving respect to Mark, because he's gotten really tired of me talking about AI, because he's just not a fan, and plus he's overloaded with work for our community at the moment. I've kind of said, okay, Mark, you don't like the extractions we do, but tell me what they should be, because he keeps saying, oh, anybody could do that bit or this bit. So as a community, I very much agree with the notion of deciding what kind of things we want to take out of these papers. Where is it too far? Where do we have the system reading for us? We don't want that, but we do want basics. Dini, please.
Well, I'm reading a lot about AI and especially looking at how we're using it in the classroom because I'm getting ready to teach this semester. We're moving into a lot of AI work, new tools and things like that that are being used in the Canvas and different things that the university is adopting, right? And universities are asking faculty to involve AI in our teaching. So I'm trying to get up to snuff on the different tools that I can use. Know that everything I'm seeing and everything I've learned from the ELO conference by my colleagues who are much smarter about AI than I am, is that no matter what we do to extract information from AI or use AI for our activities, we have to check the machines. We have to check what they're doing. So what we're going to be doing is pulling out information using AI tools, but we ourselves have to go through and check that data, right? So the data could be faulty. The data, AI doesn't understand exactly what we're talking about. It can't know the field. It doesn't know the field. So ultimately, we can give it prompts the best we can, and then turn it loose, get the data back, and then check that data. So we're still going to be doing the hard labor of this work. And I don't disagree with you about what you're pulling out. So I think that's a moot point. The bigger point is what's the method that we use for this in AI? And then how do we make sure that information is correct so that we don't make mistakes? Let me finish by saying that my personal experience working in my lab all these years about data is that I read an article in one of the books or journals that I have to look at about electronic literature. And I read by this person, so-and-so, that Michael Joyce After the Story contained 936 links and 948 nodes and 348 links. And then that article is referenced in another article, and that article is referenced in another article, and they're just referencing each other. I have a copy of the 1990 After the Story, and I put it in my little computer here, and it's not true. That's not the amount of nodes and links. It's completely wrong. So now I have to go through and 30 years of people writing about this work and undo the wrong, right? This is not correct information. You have to check the sources. And this is something we try to teach in our classes to our students, but we scholars are as bad at it than anybody. We're terrible at checking sources. We rely on tools and other people to tell us the information that we need. And I like to think that I end my life not relying on other people's data, that I produce my own data and check it against the reality of that work, right? That has been the hallmark of our program, getting the information correct. And when I'm wrong about something, I immediately fix it, right? So I don't want us to belabor what we're pulling out, because I think you're correct. But what is going to be our process for ensuring the correctness of our data? That's the scholarly part of this. And I don't want to be lazy at all.
Right. So I think that means maybe we need to look at levels of abstraction, because extracting names from a document should be relatively straightforward. And again, an error can always come in somewhere, which is why copy a citation is useful, because it's error-free. It'll take what the document said. So if we start with, these are the hard, let's use the word facts of the document. How many words, keywords, and taking things out. And over here is an AI saying, this is a wonderful piece of poetry that'll influence the minds of millions. There's kind of a continuum in between those two types of things taken out of the document, right? And we should probably try to acknowledge that in different ways, no?
What we're going to have to do is explain our methodology. We're going to have to say somewhere in the documentation that this is what we think, and this is how we did it, and this is why we did it this way. And then that will underpin our actions and give us more credibility.
Yeah, just really briefly, you're going to share this. Here it is. Okay. So this is something that I've been experimenting with to batch process papers for this kind of testing. And just to write how it should be done is actually quite difficult. But here's the thing that I want to share with you guys. It needs more than one prompt, right? So here is a prompt that goes through the keywords and stats, whether the names, whether the keywords, that kind of stuff, right? It also asked for the word count, because we may want to show the thickness of a paper. But then below that, we have the much more guessing, or I can't think of the right word. I mean, here it is questions like, what is the sentiment of the authors? This kind of stuff most definitely needs to be very, very clear to anyone who consumes the data, that this was employed, this is from machine. it is actually quite shocking so far how good it is. But one thing that I found that is surprisingly bad is when I just have it re-render the text, it loses a word every once in a while. Sorry, Peter.
I find it particularly useful to highlight introductions of concepts as opposed to mere references to them. There's a wonderful LaTeX package called Knowledge that helps manage that. I dropped in a tutorial on its use and a discussion in that paper, and the Knowledge package in general could prove a valuable touch point for us.
I think, Leon, you hit the nail on the head. How, I mean, how and what, but also why. Why are we doing it this way? Why are we relying on AI, and what can real AI give us that we can't do? What's the point?
Oh, just
What's
a
the benefit?
quick question because of what Peter said. Peter, I'm going to look at the PDF, but it is worth pointing out that I have no idea who wrote it.
Oh, just someone who's a big fan of using that package in their writing.
And it means I can't cite it. So it is, even though it is about information packages, it is missing the most human component possible. The author's name isn't there.
Let's see, hang on. One minute, I'll have that for you in a second.
No, it's okay. I'm just saying it is kind of ironic. It happens again and again, especially with the ACM. You have all these wonderful pieces of information. It's missing publication date, title, or author. Leon, please, and then Dini, I really, really want to go further into exactly the whole point that you just made to us.
Okay, the author was Remy Morvan, and the file came off of his GitHub account.
Okay, thank
But
you.
You're right, he didn't put it inside of the paper proper. That's amazing.
Yeah, Leon, please.
Yeah, I find this a very interesting situation where we have a sort of how versus what versus why triangle almost. And I guess this is very typical for when a very powerful tool or technology arises. I also notice this with colleagues who are, for example, developers who are convinced that they are 10 times more productive by using AI in their code editor, while at the same time, if you ask a bit further, they have actually no idea if that's really true. And so there's a similar how, what, why situation there, that we have a powerful tool, but the whole black magic around it makes it also very hard to know if it's really going to help us in a lot of situations. And I think Frode, the whole, like, you seem to be very interested in figuring out the right prompt, which seems to be a bit of a sort of like a new skill these days. At the same time, if I think about Dini's why and how question, then there is a bit of a problem there that, like, every model could respond differently to such a prompt. So we don't have any guarantees that, like, even if we run and optimize the prompt 100 times and it works, then we don't really know if we did something, which is academically useful and reproducible. So I think what I also sense in Dini's stories is that, like, the academic world is really interested in sort of deterministic, reproducible workflows. And I think what I find very difficult is that I love these AI things for quick one-off things, but I don't know in which cases they are good in batch. So this is a very, I find this a very interesting stalemate between why, what, and how.
Okay. First, I want to say it's not between, it's all. We have to address all three. And so and Rob can speak to this, but there's a term in Greek, there's a preposition called mende, men, day, de, and that means both and. On the one hand and on the other. So it's dual thinking, holding two ideas in your head simultaneously without having to make a choice, right? Realizing the value of both ways of thinking, which is lost in American culture, I have to say. We're so binary. So I'm trying to produce something, suggest something that's not binary. We have to talk about what we're doing. We have to talk about why we're doing it. And we have to talk about how we're doing it. In academics, that's called methodology, right? And so we have to always reveal how we're doing something and why we're doing it to a public. Also, I'd like to address your notion about reproducibility. Science requires it. In fact, the argument I've heard from my science colleagues that the difference between science and humanities is that humanities does not require reproducibility. Every individual has their own views, and it doesn't have to be reproduced across people. Of course, that could be argued in political thinking. That's not true, but that's the humanities way of thinking. It's individualistic thinking. Whereas in sciences, if I come up with an experiment and I say this happened, someone in another lab will do that same experiment. And if they can reproduce that data, then that data becomes truth, right? It becomes real. And so reproducibility is not just an academic thing, it's a scientific thing. And so 1 and 1, according to Plato, equals 2, no matter where you are and who you are. And what we've shown with quantum mechanics is that 1 and 1 does not always equal 2. And that's the difference, right? So we're living in the world where 1 and 1 does not always equal 2, but it can. So it's both.
I looked up the academic method, couldn't find anything authoritative. I looked up the scientific, and it's very much what you're talking about. But then I also found a lot of, this was in relation to my human paper. I also found a lot of commentary people saying that science doesn't, and this is not in disagreement with that statement, it's not linear. You know, there will be an insight that's completely different, but then at the end of the day, it has to be reproducible. And that's something I think we can help people really spur their imagination. Now, so what I'm trying to do here is figure out what to use for visualization. So, Leon, this is why I think it's a continuity. Some things are keywords. They're in the document. We take them out because they're useful. Like the example I've used many times. If a document includes the name Ted Nelson, I may want to know. Very simple, direct connection. And then separately, I may have a very specific spiritual, political, or other agenda where I've taught my ML my perspective, which may be very different from yours. And when it's then presented to me, it's presented with that weight. So that's, again, what I'm talking about, a continuum between having an AI that may be wrong, but it's a bit creative and it may inspire me or not. But at a certain point, the user has to know this is relatively factual and this is entirely speculative. So that's all of that. And now might be a good time to go into, Leon, what you're talking about. I just wanted to mention, Leon, that I sent this information about ActivityPub to a friend who has written several books on technology.
Can I mention one more thing, Frode?
Of course.
The notion about reproducibility. So in terms of our project, folks, if what we produce can't be picked up, if someone else cannot pick up their headset and have the experience that we're having in our headsets, then we fucked up. We want to reproduce what's happening here elsewhere. There will be some changes. There might be some resolution issues depending on the headset, but we don't want us to create something and then hand that over to someone else and they go, I don't see anything. You know, what's going on here? So Andrew is heroically producing reproducible data. Yeah.
My dream is very different. So I'm very glad you said that before we move on. My dream is that there are several contexts that are really important. And one of the contexts is the user themselves, which can, of course, come down to just visual things or auditory and accessibility and so on, but also their perspective. So I want to be able to share a point of view but let's say I share a point of view with something in politics that somebody here doesn't agree with. Yes, I fully agree with Dini. They should be able to see my point of view, my space, absolutely. But they should also very easily be able to see it through their kind of lens. Because yes, there are real facts in the world, but I think what really matters intellectually is perspectives. So people should be really able to mess around with stuff and share stuff. So I don't think we necessarily disagree, but there is a bit of a let us not limit ourselves. On that note, Leon. Thank you, Dini. Agree with that.
I want to say one more thing on this. I noticed exactly the same problem while the whole LLM AI stuff got sort of marketed out there. Like it came with a sort of a temperature setting. It's like a slider, and if it's set to 0, it's basically it turns the speculation of the model to 0, so you get 0 to none, almost 0 deterministic output. So I guess maybe you need something for text, or perhaps inside the slider, inside the XR space as well, that like if you want people to, be able to play around with things or to have the AI, be more creative, then maybe people should know about it, that they're actually in that mode. Otherwise, maybe Mark would become very annoyed very, very easily, because he would probably set the slider to 0. So that might be an interesting meta control to sort of copy into the space as well. Just an idea.
That is actually what I'm trying to do. And the way I'm trying to do it is we choose what kind of things we consider are quite basic when we extract knowledge, like the keyword type thing, and then what is more in our domain that, as Peter also said, has been trained. So you have a choice. I mean, for instance, here, I took the paper Peter shared with us, right? So I gave it some metadata, so it knows what it is. And then I ran one more. I ran the basic library catalog extraction, which all it does is extracted names, word count, and it tries to do topic, right? So all that means is if I take, for instance, this one here, I'm just going to copy because I don't know how to write it. And if I go into my library view, if I now do a search for that, it'll find the document. That is all it does now. And that's it. But if it does something more sophisticated, this is very important, Leon, absolutely right, I completely agree. That is a different kettle of fish. And that's really where we need to be. I would like for someone to go into our headset environment and write a really weird prompt that just doesn't make sense for us, but they know what that prompt is and they get the weird responses with it. That's kind of on the artistic side of what in the world. And this is very important, and this is very much Peter's contribution to my work. When they then publish the results of their work, it should be clear what was generated how, so someone else can choose to entirely regard or disregard where that came from. Get rid of all the weird AI because it wasn't their AI. Right. So yeah, Leon. So on the activity pub, so my friend came back with, I thought there had been support for activity pub Fediverse and WordPress for some time. What's new? So I was telling him about it's been growing. And he says here, the big news lately has been that Threads plans to integrate with it. I think you mentioned that, Leon, too. And here's the thing, final message from my friend. In my book from 2013, I wrote about the potential for decentralized social media. There have been so many attempts over the years, but this one seems to finally have traction. Decentralized systems generally can't compete on performance, though. Timely and ordered delivery of social posts is a hard problem dating all the way back to Usenet. So it was nice to get this other perspective, Leon, to what you've been hyping. But that is what you'd like to talk about a little bit now, right?
Can do. There's one thing, or actually two things. I need to go at 6, and the agenda says that actually Andrew has a 30 minutes update. So I'm not sure what to do about that.
That's a general
Or
thing.
is that
Andrew is
I don't. Not this week. Yep.
okay.
I think that's just on a repeating cycle. It's just in every agenda.
Yes.
Okay.
Andrew spot.
Well, then that's good news. I don't really have updates on this, but it's other than what I did on Monday. I don't know. Yeah, I started to realize that it's actually this whole, the hype about Mastodon is actually the hype about ActivityPub, because Mastodon is just a doorway to this ActivityPub, which is a protocol which makes feeds interoperable, basically posts from websites and comments around them. You can do it from anywhere. You don't need to log into a specific social platform or website anymore. You can just it's basically peer-to-peer. That's basically how it can be described the best, I guess, and not peer-to-peer in the sort of BitTorrent sense, but in a sort of people-to-people kind of sense, which is very interesting, because if you think about years ago, the website was just a website with an email, a mail to link. You could click it and boom, it would basically pop up your email. You could immediately contact the person who was responsible for the website. And I think, that was lost at some point a bit. People would not put their emails, or maybe they would scramble it, or you had like a spam problem. But I think with this ActivityPub, you're more interacting with somebody else, his feed, and somebody can make numerous multiple feeds categorized by topic. And I think this whole sort of like early web feeling is sort of like I feel it when I'm engaging with these ActivityPub feeds, and it also makes it addressable again by ironically, and I will put it in the chat, identifying every feed with an email address. So for example, my feed address at Future of Text Lab is this. So it's not Leon at futuretextlab.info, but at Leon, and that's basically the identifier or ActivityPub address for a feed. And a website can also have future text lab. It can also have a sort of catch-all. Then you can basically get a feed of all the authors on that WordPress website or blog. And I find this very refreshing. It's sort of all the good stuff about email address, RSS, and comment plugins in one W3C protocol. It feels almost like if you just wait long enough, there will be a W3C protocol about some popular features, and then we're sort of like back full circle. So it's a very interesting play between corporations, innovating something fast like Facebook, Twitter, and then the open standards, the global commons responding with a protocol. I find that really, really interesting, this sort of cycle.
Can I respond to that? I attended a session at ELO about kind of about that idea, Leon, where every item, everything, every possible point had an ID, had an identifier. And what these people were arguing is that their identifier system was the way everyone should be working, and that we all should be adapting their identifier system, and that they turned to me, that created the next, and said, now you need to change the next so that all your identifiers fall into line with our identifier system. And but yeah, there's going to be so that what that said to me and what you're talking about is there's going to be a mad dash to develop a standardization for every object, and know that these systems already exist. There's DOIs, there's ORCID numbers, there's ISBNs or ISSNs, there's all these
But Dini, this is based on the web, so it's already there. This is not a new identifier. That's what's so amazing about it.
Well, it's new. I mean, this whole idea of every object having a number that's standardized is brand new. But we do already have various systems in place, but nothing that standardizes everything in one place.
Well,
with the same system. Let me finish. Because right now the Next is we have our own identifiers for the database, right? And so we have a system in place already, but we also use the DOI if there's a website involved in the project. The DOIs there. We have ORCID numbers for the authors if they have an ORCID number. We use the ELMCIT database number if there's an ELMCIT reference. They're already doing that. But what this group was arguing was that we need to change all that and come up with a whole new system based on this system that they developed for not web-based things, but digital objects, born digital objects. And I think they're not incorrect in that, but it's going to take more than just one group of people in Norway developing a system for all of us across the world to be able to use. And it's going to shake out over time, and it's not going to be them doing it. It's going to be the Library of Congress or the British Library, or going to be a larger system that comes up with this. Not going to be me. And it's coming down the pipe, though, and they were right about that.
Right. So
we're already running in identifiers.
So the reason URLs are called URLs is because they were not allowed to be called URIs, because they're not universal identifiers.
And we are using URIs in the Next. The Next is built on URIs.
Yeah, but when Tim Berners-Lee first worked on the web, they wanted to be calling them URLs. But the standards community didn't accept that. So now it's a bit different. But what Leon is presenting here now has got absolutely nothing to do with naming conventions. It is using what exists on the web. The whole amazing thing is, if you have a domain on the web, this now can be also a domain for social communities, not just for a web page. So I think that's really, really quite exciting, because I hosted a Mastodon server for about 6 months last year for us to experiment with. $300 a month, huge waste of money, huge infrastructure. Now we have a Mastodon server just because we have the futuretextlab.info. So that I think that is a really huge new thing. If you have a WordPress server, you got it.
Yeah, and I think there's also like a distinction between, this is, I think ActivityPub is more like a cultural, let's say, protocol for, let's say, everybody in the world. And obviously there will be superior, more precise, more resilient ones existing already in academic spaces. And I think that's good to have this plurality of protocols, basically. I think it's really interesting that, something which might be good and military grade almost for academic purposes, might be harder to use for cultural purposes. So yeah, I think this is a nice celebration for the web that this whole open internet is multi-protocol, and everybody can use protocols which suit them best, and I think that's a really great thing.
So then I have a question for Andrew. Theoretically, not to be done now, I feel like Peter. I feel like a lawyer, so I don't scare Andrew or Dini with, "Hey, we're going to do this new thing." Theoretically, I guess this could be used as a mechanism to share our JSON.
Maybe one day.
Maybe one day, but it's worth
Like as a stream. So instead of it, so it just auto updates and pushes it.
Yeah, and again, not
Could be
to do now,
interesting.
not to do at all for our current cycle, but I could imagine Peter's in the headset doing things. He has his data and he wants to share it. If he then from the headset publishes it to a WordPress blog, then whoever subscribes to that can choose to see Peter's view.
Yeah, like yeah, in theory that should work. It would just have to auto upload at the end. So we'd have to have a new kind of exit or an autosave feature. Definitely neither of those are that easy to do right now, but you know, like you said theoretically.
Yeah. No, it is theoretically. The thing is, social media stuff is definitely part of the future of text, but it isn't really core to the future academic documents. However, we do want to build towards a day where, Peter, Dini, and me, because of our different worlds, can argue over something and share our perspectives. Right, so we all have our headset, and it's like you're looking at it wrong. Do this, and this may be the easiest way to do that. Peter.
Yeah, I'd really like to be able to be looking at a footnote, click on, have the footnote actually expand into a discussion forum and live chat room if anyone else just happens to be opening that footnote at the same time I have it open.
Right, now we're going back to the 1,000 billion points of light, where at some point, I mean, like the world right now is in turmoil, obviously. So obviously, it is important that we make a massive leap in how we can deal with our information. And information is stuff connected, right? That we talked about in the beginning. How to do what you just talked about now, I have no idea, Peter, but it's one of those things that makes sense. How to, I'm very much about documents for one reason, but of course we need to have dynamic environments too. The whole publish and subscribe thing also makes sense. Not everything has to be completely live, but you should be able to go out and query what's going on with people, and you should be able to choose what of your own world you make public, right? I really do hope all of you get to look at the Polycam thing very soon, because it literally opened my eyeballs. It was of such a different quality than anything I've ever experienced. And as I said, thank you for today, Leon. I look forward to Monday. Hope to see you on Monday. Yeah, so many opportunities, guys. Yeah, that was kind of a hint to move somewhere else. Let me ask you this, Andrew and Dini, just to ask the two of you specifically. Now that we're going to be having less updates because there's more work happening over the next few weeks, how would you like to spend Wednesdays when we don't have something to go through and polish and discuss?
Working on the
Well, I
symposium.
think yeah, Dini,
Yeah, working on the symposium, working on the students competition, working on all the other elements that's part of this project. We got metadata, visual meta to talk about. There's a lot of things we haven't discussed, and I'm working a lot on behind the scenes, but it'd be great to have things brought out into the forefront if there's time on Wednesdays. Andrew, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, that was a much better explanation than what I was going to say. It's going to be a lot more generic. There's always been plenty to discuss on Wednesdays. Um, my updates are actually very brief in the scope of the 2 hours we have. Like sometimes we don't even get to the updates. and that's totally fine. So I wouldn't be worried about how are we going to fill the time, because as a group, you always have.
Mhm.
And also the letter you wrote, Frode, to the team, that's something, I mean, to the folks, the muckety mucks that you know. It'd be great to people, I mean, you use the Future of Text team. You refer to us in your letter, and yet I have seen your letter, but the rest of us have not. So whenever we refer to each other in these important communications, it'd be great to share that with our team members so they know what's being said on our behalf. And Wednesday's a good day to do that.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Dini. This, yeah, the question of how broad to make it. I mean, I do post some things on Slack. I don't think I posted that, but yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, so okay, so basically Wednesdays from now till hypertext will be, if Andrew's got something you want us to play with, we play it. Other than that, we look at the symposium itself. We look a little bit about organizing the Mondays, all that good stuff. Now, Yannis, the president of ACM, has agreed to write an article for us, which is nice for the book. He will not be able to come to the symposium. He has something else on, but at least that was a positive thing out of all of this stuff.
Yeah, we also have to talk about the book. We've got people we got to hire. There's lots of things.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to get clarity from Mark, and I'll send him a message, is that I'm trying today, or actually tomorrow, I'm going to campus to buy the conference entry for us, and I'm looking at the prices. I can't make heads or tails of it. Can I bring it up and show you now? Maybe you can help me. I can't figure this out. It's very convoluted. Let me pull it up for us. And maybe those of you with more experience with this.
I don't think so, but let's see. These things are always done at the last second, in my experience. It's always a mess, but yeah, go for it.
Well, I'm pulling up the website. Give me just a second. Can't seem to find it. Hang on a second. Got so many windows open. I'm on this gigantic computer. You'd think that I would be able to find things, but I still can't find things on this computer.
Yeah, I get it.
This is crazy. New window. Okay, there we go. Okay. Now let me do a screen share. Can you see the website?
Yes.
And also, Rob is going to be coming to the conference, and we probably ought to talk about our demo at one of these upcoming Wednesdays to talk about how we're going to be using all of us during the demo. And we need to put together like a testing tool so that we can get people to test our project and let them give us some feedback. And Rob is going to be there to help us. It'd be great to find out who else from our team is going to be there, who might be able to give us a hand, right? Here's registration. Okay, registration's open. Yay. Okay. Deadline's coming up. It's going to load. It's going to load a lot of stuff. It's like, okay. Look at this. Workshops only, late research tracks, practitioners tracks only, online viewer, summer school. So does A include workshops, practitioners track? I mean, does A include everything else?
We definitely, sorry, we definitely need Mark for this. Yes.
I've never seen it this way. It wasn't like this the last 4 years. So this is, I mean, and if you look at the prices, so let's go to workshops only. If you click on that, here's workshops. It's still pretty, it's still, not cheap. If you go back and you go to research tracks, which is A, which follows after B, and it's before C, which makes not a bit of sense to me. Here's this. Early bird non-members, early bird professionals. What does that even mean? Research track early bird student, non-student. What's the difference between a non-student and a professional or I mean, I don't understand at all. And I want to I've got to pay for you, Andrew, me, and yeah, just the three of us. So I'll have to send a note to Mariusz then about this because I really can't suss it out. I got a PhD. I can't figure it out. It's complicated.
2 law degrees don't help with it either.
Yeah, it's just weird. Anyway, I'll write Mariusz and get his opinion about this. But we need to come up, I think the group can develop a nice testing tool. Now, Rob?
I just thought that it was the same price as last year, so I paid 400 euros.
Okay. Which one did you sign up for, though, when you went through the system? Did you say A?
I think I said A,
Okay.
because that was the one that was $400,
Okay.
100 euros. Yeah, I don't know. It was confusing to me too. There were too many options,
Way too many options.
and they didn't make much sense. But I thought maybe that was just sort of a Polish thing. They have a different
Huh, there we go.
worldview.
Well, I'm Czech. I'm pretty close. And it still didn't make sense to
It's a
me.
derivative from the Soviet Union, so they
Yeah.
try to make the bureaucracy as confusing as possible.
So, Frode, maybe next week on the agenda for Wednesday, we can put in like a discussion about the book, symposium, the demo, student competition.
Let's do that right now.
And that way we can cover these things because I don't want to work in a vacuum. I mean, you and I should not be making, every decision by ourselves. We should be at least sharing it with the group. And I think once again, anything we write on behalf of all of us, we should be sharing that widely. Like I dropped our demo information into the Slack channel, dropped the letters in, let people know because it does help.
Hang on, I'm just gonna, I'll share the screen for this. Put the basics in.
Yeah, I agree with you, Peter. It's insane.
What was that?
An insane number of tab groups for Safari.
I can't even write, but whatever. Then we have, yeah, so what items should we put on here for the symposium?
Well, show them the spreadsheet, who we've invited and who has said they're going to be coming,
Yeah, that's one.
invited and attending. The actual like methodology, like how it's going to unfold. Like we're going to start at 9, have this many sessions, break at lunch, give the schedule. That would
Okay.
help me a lot too, because I'm trying to schedule lunches and things like that. We have a student competition. We need judges for that. We need to have we got criteria already, but we need judges for that. So we need volunteers from the team for judging and outside the team. And these are really practical, unsexy things to think about. We've been talking about very sexy things all day. This is very like mind-numbing things. I want to go on record saying buying tickets to Poland and back took me a day. And it was mind-numbing. I got through and all I could do is sit out on the deck with a glass of wine and just drink. It's like, oh my God, 18-hour layover. I had to get a hotel in Amsterdam. It was just frigging crazy. I can't wait to do the the hypertext registration tomorrow.
Yeah, these things should not be complicated.
No.
So I do have a request for all
Rob
of
has a question.
Oh,
I have a question that I was given 2 papers to evaluate, and I evaluated the second one, which was a little demo of a game that was very retro and kind of interesting. And I filed it on the website, and it disappeared like the first time.
Huh.
And I tried again, and I managed to get it there, and now it has completely disappeared. I wrote Alessandro, I think,
Alicio?
and got no reply.
Okay.
Yeah, Amadou.
I would say Mark Anderson would be the person to talk to. Just drop a note to Mark. Mark has taken up an incredible amount of service for this conference. I mean, he is, they better pay him something. He's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, he's just doing it so much work. And so I would write Mark.
Yeah, I don't know why it disappeared. Maybe they withdrew it.
I can tell you why. The system is horrible, and Mark has moaned and complained rightly about these systems. So the letter that I've written to the ACM, which is primarily about metadata, I'm going to point it here, is also about getting the structure cleaned up. Hang on. Just going to give this to you here, as I should have done already. Yeah, so when I'm talking to Mark about these things, once we can start helping the ACM do things in a bit more organized manner, that would be very useful. Because these documents were overwritten, some of them, he said, which is a bit absurd.
I also received notice from the ACM people that it's time to start talking about our demo needs. And so I need to write them back and let them know what we need for our demo. And they gave me a list of things that are available to use.
How much are we allowed to bring ourselves?
Anything we want, everything.
Okay. Because it might honestly be easier if we just tell them we need simple things like, oh, we need a table. And then we kind of take care of all the other stuff, just so we know our setup works. I don't know. I know we had a little bit of a headache last year in Rome where they provided some of the demo stuff and then they didn't have HDMI cables, so we couldn't display anything. So it was a little bit of a headache there. I would like to avoid that this time.
Yeah, we're bringing everything that's text-centered. All I want from them is a table, electricity, extension cords, and an internet connection.
And I noticed we have the opportunity to make a little video that will display on some big screen to kind of encourage people to check out our demo. So that would also be a good thing to put together.
They offered us a laptop. I would like to see a monitor if they can afford it, if they have one laying around.
That would be good.
So I'll ask for that too. Good idea. I mean, we're now getting to the point of our project, everybody, that we're having to do logistics. Andrew's got a clear path for his development, and he's going to be showing what he's developing. We'll give him some feedback. But the rest of these meetings are going to be getting ready for Poznan, the symposium, and the final delivery of year 1.
Yeah.
And I don't want to work in a vacuum. I'm making a lot of project management decisions, and I'd like to have your feedback. So, and I'll bring stuff to you next week.
Yeah, no, that's great, Dini, that we're on that. When it comes to our presentation, I think the guide for how to be in there should actually be printed on paper. We can have a video as well, absolutely cool, no problem. But I think we should have a printed guide that says, you have these controls, this is what we expect you to see, and this will take a bit of time for us to edit and make sure it's super clear. And it may also provide a tangible thing that the attendees can take with them, because we will have this available publicly, so they can look at it very easily on their own then, right? What do you guys think about that?
Mhm. I would actually argue that we want to have a handout, a really nice designed handout that Holly makes for us, that on one side talks about the project and has images, and on the other side, the how-to for the demo. So it's a take, we call those takeaways in the US. We want a takeaway. URL listed there, the names of the team, all of that. So promotional on one side, methodological on the other.
Should go out at the beginning
Mhm.
so people have time to look at
Yeah, I agree.
it. I want to look at it now.
Yeah, I agree, Deanie, absolutely. We should make that nice. Now, I see Peter's going to have to go in 10 minutes, but I'm going to ask all of you. Let's pretend we suddenly have millions of dollars. Andrew's been augmented with many other programmers that he is in charge of. And we've decided we're going to make this millions and millions of points of light environment. It's been in basically every single sci-fi movie ever. What we bring to it is a bit more organization and the fact that you can actually read things. It's not just in the dots. What might you guys want to see when you get in a work thing? What see or do? And what should it be based on? Hint, hint, what should be extracted from the papers?
Well, I think I want to think about that a little bit. I mean, people can throw things into the chat, but I'll collect them, but I'd like to have some time to think.
Oh, I'd like to see a bibliometric visualization showing all of the papers that this paper directly or indirectly draws on. So a full transitive closure of the citation graph coming out of the paper.
That sounds really interesting, Peter, and therefore I will task you to do that. So Mark has made a whole set of hypertext papers available in Basecamp. So you can extract them, and if you want to play with your own prompts, that would be really, really cool. And then we can see from your very different perspective what is actually speculative and what is more factual and how we want to use it. Is that cool?
Yeah, it sounds worth playing around with.
What would you want to see, Rob? Sci-fi guy who should have millions of ideas, please, please.
I want to look at text as a conversation with the author of the text or with the text itself, which suggested to me this morning that I find a quote or a sentence or a paragraph in the text, and I want to know what everybody else in the world has had to say about that particular piece of text. And I want it to feel like a conversation.
Can you give me an idea of the kind of a sentence that you would want to do that? Or would it be,
Well, I'm going to go back to the T.S. Eliot project, which looks like a conversation. It's got handwritten notes. It's got the original typescript. In some cases, it's got the original holographic text. And then it's got annotations in the margins, highlighting of letters or words, and emendations and corrections and things that are crossed out that you can tell. It's just got all kinds of stuff that other people have done to manipulate the text. And to me, that's really interesting. And, you know, it's kind of there in Kindle. You know, you can see pieces of text that other people have highlighted, but you can't really see it as a conversation.
so let me ask, that's absolutely worthwhile. I'm going to ask you a very pointed, direct question. Let's say that you put on the headset and you're in your room and there is at least 1 billion dots. And you have chosen to read a thing in there. So this is your background environment, so to speak. Imagine you're reading a thing presented relatively traditionally in whatever size you want. And at a certain point, you want to interact with it. You mentioned you wanted to see what dialogue goes on around that. Could you tell me further in a very colorful way, please?
I think that there are comments about, well, it's a little bit like what Google is doing now, where they give you a excerpt from a Wikipedia page, which doesn't tell you much at all. And then you click on the thing and you get the Wikipedia article, which then traps you in Wikipedia, and you have to go out and start over, which is annoying. But if you had, sort of tangentially interesting comments about this piece of text, it could be further away and more immediately, or they could be arranged in a timeline. If I want to see the most recent interactions with this piece of text, the Wasteland has a lot, 100 years of interaction with this text. So I imagine that it would be almost overwhelming. But it could be anything. I mean, I'm reading a book on cosmology by Lee Smolin, and it's a theory that he wrote in 1997 that I'm curious about what people have done with this theory. It's a theory of evolution, of natural selection in the evolution of the universe. And it's not a major theory, but I'm quite interested in it because I'm interested in evolutionary theory as applied to pretty much everything. And I'd like to know what the conversation is around that. There is some, but I'd like to have it, sort of springing up rather than having to select the text and then do a Google search and then have to do a DuckDuckGo search because Google came up with a lot of sponsored ads. I don't know if that's colorful enough.
Yeah, that is very, very interesting. You've all seen the Foundation series, right?
Yes,
So
and read them many times.
Danny and Peter and Andrew, yes, you've seen Foundation on Apple TV Plus?
I have
No,
not.
just read the books.
I'm not watching Apple Plus. I'm reading the books. I read the books.
Okay, just visually, maybe look at the trailer then if you don't want to see the series. But there's something called the Prime Radiant, which is a thing that goes into, hang on, I'm just going to upload a close-up picture of it.
I saw like 3 episodes of it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. The visual quality in itself is, imagine if you had this holographic thing of knowledge, right? It's been dreamt about forever, but from the perspective that we are working on now, what do we want to be able to do with such a thing? Andrew, did you say whether you'd seen it or not? I didn't hear.
I've not seen it, no.
What? You should try it.
I don't watch a lot of shows nowadays, but I'll add it to my list. I've got quite the list of recommendations.
It's just, as Deanie says, it's just visually amazing. The story is fine. The book presents it better, and it's quite a big departure as well. But just in terms of sci-fi art, right, Deanie? You agree with that?
I was going to say, what's interesting from my perspective, not to bring in politics, is that I love science fiction. I absolutely adore it, and I read so much of it, right? But I'm always surprised that somebody that can imagine the future or some weird, strange science fiction environment where it's the same sexual politics no matter what.
It's the same politics.
I'm so tired of it. It's like, can you not imagine a world in which there's, I don't know, not men running the universe and there's tyrants? Can we have a different storyline, please? And of course, the answer is no, they can't, because the whole point of science fiction is to play out the cultural issues in a space where it's safe to talk about it.
Yeah,
but I'm really tired of, I watched the first 3 episodes with my friend Alex at his house and started reading all the books, and I'm like, oh my God.
But Deanie, you said only 3 episodes. It's not men running the universe. They are fronts. You'll see.
I read the book, but I read the books. The
book is quite different.
Have you read all the books? Have you read them all?
Yes, I have in my teens, long time ago. But look, I'm not saying that the series is great or anything other than visually, but it isn't actually that. They are. Anyway, let's not waste time on that. But so we have this amazing spatialized thing. See you later, Peter. What would we want to see there? I mean, um, that's the big question.
I will throw in what I'm interested in right now because I just finished a book and I used what's called the amplituhedron, which is a visualization of quantum. Did I mention this before?
A little bit, but I would very much like to listen more.
It's I don't understand it very well, but it's because it's a way of visualizing quantum interactions, and it's multi-dimensional. It's very much like the prime radiant, except it's a real thing.
I can see you guys, and I'm sharing the screen. I was going to share from here, but nothing is happening. This beta is really not always that brilliant. I have no control, so I was going to share what that model thing looks like.
We have a gray screen of death.
Well, you have some icons on it, right?
Nothing. Yeah, on the side.
Yeah. Well, that was a waste of time. But so Andrew, just to ask you then, what would your ultimate knowledge? Oh yeah, Lee Pace, he's amazing. Also in *Halt and Catch Fire*, right? Powerful.
Yeah, he's gay, but it doesn't matter. I still think he's hot.
I saw you wafting your face there.
Gorgeous. He's gorgeous. Oh my God.
He's Day.
Yeah, he's Brother Day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great concept. I mean, it's really an interesting concept. But it's just so hard for me to watch those stories over and over again. I mean, I like Dune, but the Dune series is the same thing, right? The young savior boy. It's like, please.
But at least the young savior boy in Dune is a baddie.
Yeah, still, I mean, it's still the same stuff, but I see why they do it, right? That's the point of it. But I still think Octavia Butler, the women science fiction writers, are doing something really interesting. Ursula Le Guin, I mean, all of them, their work really interests me more. And by the way, Pat Cadigan's Sinners, I don't know if you've ever read Sinners before, Synners, great book. What happened with the with the system going down worldwide this past weekend was predicted in her book that came out in 1994, I think it was, 93, 94, predicted in that book. So when people are like, look what happened, oh my God, I'm like, just read Sinners. 30 years ago, she was saying this was going to happen. So it's the cyberpunk and the science fiction women I find more interesting right now. I thought Babel was interesting.
I thought Mountain and the Sea was more interesting.
Yeah, I'm reading that right now, Rob. So I'll make a comment on that when I finish it. But thank you for that reference.
What Emily and I are watching these days is the Great British Sewing Bee. It's a sewing competition. It's amazing. It's almost entirely about the contestants. Yeah, really, really charming people. So yeah, in terms of highbrow, that's as high as we're going these days. But yeah, so please, all of you who are in the call now, you all have access to the headset. You all have access to Polycam. Please, 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 just look at it. I really would like to hear if you feel it is as awe-inspiring and as amazing as I felt.
Okay, you're talking about the headset?
Yes, it's an app called Polycam.
I have it on the phone.
Yep, it's the same one. So when you're in the App Store on the headset, you download it. It's free. And then
well, it's $20 a month.
Oh, yeah, for the phone, yes, but for the headset, I think it's something else now. But the thing is, you can, if you go in there, you can download models to preview, and it's the model itself and the act of that little loading thing. I think it's amazing because of what Andrew is building for us. I think it's easier now for us to dream a lot further because we don't have to worry about reality. Reality is done right now. Rather, Andrew is implementing a reality for us. So, as Brandel has said quite a few times, what happens if you don't worry about rendering power and how you use the screen? Let's say you have 1 billion points of light in your entire room. What does that actually mean without becoming a mess?
Can I interject something? John just bought a car and we're going to pick it up today. And I want to.
Oh, what'd you get? What'd you get?
Well, he's been driving his mother's Avalon, and that was 1996. So he's had a car that's almost 30 years old.
Yeah.
And so I convinced him that it was time for us to get a car that actually can drive in the snow. Because we were stuck last year for like 5 days without being able to leave the house to go to the grocery store or anything. If there was a medical emergency, we would have died. So he got a Ford Bronco Sport, Outer Banks, 2 years old. So we bought used, but 1992. Gorgeous car, gets 28 miles to the gallon, I think. So not too bad, but it's a nice car and it's going to get us, it's got all-wheel drive. So I'm feeling a little more safer for us to have at least one decent car because my car is 20 years old. Sorry, we had 2 really old cars.
Yours is a classic. It's not old.
Oh, I got it fixed too. It's looking really nice. So I'm going to actually bug out because our lab's meeting at 10 and I want to get packed up because I'm taking John to get his car. We're paying cash for it, which is exciting too.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that
Yeah.
could almost be done.
Yeah, we're happy about that because it's 6.5% interest on any kind of car right now. Hey, Edgar.
Hang on.
All right, I'm leaving. Goodbye, everybody. Hugs.
Okay,
Andrew,
yeah.
I'll see you at 10.
I'm going to just show
See you in a bit.
Yeah. Okay, she's gone. That's fine for now. I'm just going to show you something really briefly. What am I doing? This one. Can you see? Did I share screen?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
Does-
I
Does
did
it
the
work
wrong
in the
sequence.
headset?
Yeah, I'm doing it again. Now you should be able to see, right?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. So I'm just going to go into an environment so it's not too confusing. Okay, here we go. So here it is, Polycam, and drag it a bit closer. So now, obviously the resolution is not perfect. I'm going to try to keep my head still when I open. I'm going to open the Tower of London. Oh, that's really annoying. It goes out of, you see that? Do you see the dots?
No.
No.
Barely, right? It's annoying, but if I now go really close into this model, it is so incredibly detailed. I don't know why it's so much better than any of the other models that I get on this headset.
Well, these are photo scans, right?
Yes, but it's just the visual resolution. It looks like someone has painted them with a needle.
Hmm.
The detail's just crazy because if you compare that with something else that is really cool and you should also download, I think it's free. Not Globes, sorry, Voyager. This is the one that shows you live airports around the world.
Yeah.
You know what I bet it is? I bet it's an optical trick. Having the model that close to you might be, it's the same amount of pixels, no matter how far away it is. It might be kind of tricking our brain into thinking it's super clear when it's the same resolution as everything else. It's just projected closer.
I think you're absolutely right. Hello. Hi, darling. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like this is very cool. That watching the live airport stuff and all of that. Absolutely. But I just really wanted to impress upon you guys and you can't see it through this. You just have to download it, and because it's so very tiny, it won't let me do it in the. Let me just try this. Can you see the dots now?
No.
The way it's done, it's a sphere, but not perfect sphere.
Now I can see them.
It's like a centimeter thick. And, place this thing here on the table. Oops, it decided to fall down. Anyway, let's not spend too much time on that. I'm going to try to click on this.
Didn't break, did it?
No, that's funny. So that's that's it really. So that's it really. But yeah, I look forward to Monday. We're going to be more general chatty then, and on Wednesdays more about the project. So I guess we can wind up a bit early. Everything good with you guys?
Yeah, I've got a big old list of stuff, which is it's exciting to have a clear plan. So I'll look forward to working on that. Don't have I'll be working on my other jobs today, so no updates until Thursday.
Okay. Oh, okay, that's fine. But I'm trying to sign into Zoom now. See if I can. No, it just loops for me for some reason. I was hoping I could join you there properly. Anyway, oh, hang on. Have you guys had any luck with Zoom on the headset? Have you tried it?
I never bothered with Zoom. Is it decent or is it just another screen?
I don't know. And now I managed to log in, but I'm wondering if it's the same account. Let me just try this. Calendar, future of text, join, allowance.
Recording in progress.
So, hang on.
Oh, we've got two of you now.
Yeah,
That's
I'm just trying
interesting.
to.
Oh,
Am I? I'm spatial, right?
yeah, that's
That's.
kind of eerie.
Oh my God! It actually works because I think Brandel talked about this. But hang on, I'm going to close another one.
Oh,
Okay.
your avatar. I see.
Yeah. So one is recording, and the other one is. Hang on. That's very. I have it overlaid my. Can I get? Okay, so I'm always in a fake environment. That's obviously not my room, but I can't show you the virtual environment I'm in. That's weird, isn't it? And I look very stern. But
That's
then I
kind of an
always do.
oversight. And they can't see you in your the environment you're in. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I wonder if it's some kind of privacy thing, but you should be able to choose that, no?
It doesn't really seem like a privacy issue if it's a fake environment, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I agree with is what I'm trying to say. Let me just see settings. I've made it a bit. Hmm. Yeah, I guess that doesn't make much difference. Anyway, um, yeah, Rob, you can also, of course, download the Zoom app if you want.
Sorry?
It'd be fun if you also download the Zoom app to try it at some point.
I have not. But I have to find the app that you're talking about. I don't know where it is.
Oh, you have to go to the App Store to get it.
I'm in the App Store.
Just search by, I think you just have to search by name. The App Store is surprisingly bad.
Hey, I don't see where the search is. Break some bricks. Is it the App Store or the compatible App Store?
App Store.
Okay. Well, it's just got a lot of junk on it. Just apps for Vision Pro, maybe that?
So, Andrew,
No.
I guess you are good and you don't have any questions either, right? About the way things are at the moment?
Yeah, no questions at the moment.
I guess that is a good thing. Aha, I can choose a default camera background. That's cool.
Well, there's some
Ah,
progress.
yay. Now I'm in a lake in Norway, apparently. But then moon. This is cool. And it's instant. You can see it, right?
Yeah, it's really low resolution and blurry though.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Okay, let me click done and then see if that changes it. If it gets, is it better now that it's,
No, it's not really changing. The background image is maybe that's intentional. Maybe it's
uh,
supposed to be out of focus, so it's not distracting.
yeah, maybe, but then the face should be a bit sharper.
Yeah, the face isn't terrible. The
Oh,
background's
well, thank you.
particularly blurry.
You look like one of the masters of the universe from the Superman movie.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I was going for. Yep.
Yeah.
Masters of the Universe. I like that.
It is a bit uncanny. It's strange. Like
Yeah.
it sort of looks like you, but it's hard to explain why. It's something about it is like not quite you.
I think one thing is it's too high up. My head has to go really low to be straight on. I don't know why that is. This is
Oh,
my normal head. It looks like I'm overlooking you.
maybe that
And
is
I,
part of it.
yeah, and also I know it's a bit of a sternness, but my face is quite not dynamic anyway. So I don't know. It's better than it was initially. So there is that. Um, and hang on. Let me see if I can actually share my screen with you to show my virtual. No, yeah, share screen, start broadcast. Can you see my screen now? No, you can't, can you?
Yeah, no, we
Yeah.
can.
Oh, that's weird because I can't. I see
Oh,
myself.
yeah, it's just showing us what your headset sees.
This is the new environment that got released today.
Oh, I do like that. I noticed it changed the perspective of your camera when you moved that screen.
Oh, the
Yeah.
Yeah,
background
okay.
perspective.
Yeah, but it's also changing the angle of your face, which maybe that's why it sort of was looking down at us.
That's very odd.
It's kind of
This
cool
is
though.
quite. This is kind of a nice environment. Let me just move you off like that. Very misty, very realistic.
Yeah, I like this one.
Wow. The I have to say the Mount Hood though is amazing, isn't it?
Ooh, I did get to experience this one. That's really nice.
Yeah, this has been my favorite so far. And if you're not running any apps, raindrops hit the water, which is quite clever, I think. And other cool ones, of course, the moon. Bora Bora is a new one. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
I think I've seen this one.
Have you seen it at night?
No, I have not.
All right, well, let's go to nighttime.
That's pleasant.
Inspirational place to work. It is kind of crazy, the rendering it needs to do this, because obviously the clouds are moving, the water's moving, the trees are moving, and it's actual 3D. You know, if there's a rock in this environment, you move your head, there's parallax. Plus, it runs apps in the foreground, so yeah, there's some things to spare. Anyway, thank you guys for today. And as always, if there's someone you think we should invite for the symposium and book, please do tell. And also, please think of 1,000,000,000 points of light. In fact, I'm going to do that again before I log off. Oh yeah, that's the thing. For some reason, it goes out of this view.
So the points of light are just a loading screen almost. Frode, since you exited Zoom on that other account, we can't hear you anymore.
You're muted.
Yeah, you'll need to unmute your main account.
I think I disconnected from the headset one. All right.
Cool. All right, well, I'll see you
That was
all
exciting.
Monday.
Have a good weekend, everyone. Well, both of you.
Likewise.
And sorry, the volume was low. I couldn't even hear you until you said that. Yeah, look forward to Monday. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Take care.